You've tuned in to Heroes Wanted. I am your host, Joe Prim. My mission is to equip fathers to abandon average and find discipline, confidence, and purpose by uncovering the hero within. Some sort of virus or flu or variation of COVID has come after me today, but I'm not going to let it hold me back from moving forward with this episode because I think it's important. So you might see a little different tone in my voice, and I'll try to keep from coughing during the broadcast, but bear with me just a little bit as I push forward to get this episode out to you. Coming up later this spring, down here in Hill Country, Texas, before it gets too hot, we're going to do the second 12-hour Strength Through Adversity walk. It's a 12-hour walk. There's very, very limited number of people that will be allowed to join us on this walk. If it's something that you're interested in, if you're interested in getting to know some people in a very close way over a short amount of time, and at the same time, challenge the heck out of yourself and have a good day out in the Texas fresh air, hit me up on Instagram or on Facebook, and let's see if we can't get you signed up and get you down here to Texas to do this 12-hour walk. The last one that I did was amazing. It was not easy, probably a little bit harder than I was expecting it to be, but at the same time, very, very worthwhile. So if something you're interested in or something you'd like to think about doing, let me know. Again, hit me up on Instagram or on Facebook and let's get you signed up. Very, very limited space for this event. I believe that fears, lies, and expectations of others are keeping you from abandoning average. I believe it's the fears, lies, and expectations of others that are killing your confidence, your discipline, and your purpose. I believe that the fear, lies, and expectations of others are three challenges that must be overcome in order for you to uncover the hero within. And since I started toying with this idea and building out this idea of Heroes Wanted and started putting in the foundations of what this meant before it became a podcast and when I first started using it as a coaching program, these three challenges came to my mind over and over and over again. Again, fear, lies, and expectations of others, because they came straight out of my life. They came straight out of my experience of uncovering the hero within, through the difficulties, the hard times, and what I needed to do in order to uncover the hero. So last week, we talked about Gideon. First ever episode of Heroes Wanted. Yeah, excited to do that episode. First ever episode of Hero Theory. We're going to go through and do a bunch of different heroes this year. This is going to be a 3-parter to start out the year on Gideon. I doubt the rest of them will be that long, probably just 1 or 2 episodes. But this idea of breaking down and studying the lives of different heroes throughout our nation's history, throughout the history of the world, and throughout the Bible, I think that we have a lot to learn. So this week, as normal, as I'm thinking about Heroes Wanted and what that means and what it means to uncover the hero within, I came back to this idea once again that I mentioned 5 times or 6 times already in this episode: fear, lies, and E of O, expectations of others. And as I was thinking about these 3 things and how they correlated into my life and how much I believe that it is important to overcome those challenges in order to move forward and in order to truly rise and uncover the hero within, I thought, I wonder if these 3 areas will mesh or line up with Gideon's life. Let's just, for the sake of it, take a look. And to my surprise, they lined up perfectly. And after lining them up with Gideon, I have a sinking suspicion that no matter where we go, no matter what heroes that we delve into or try to study going into this next year with Heroes Wanted, we will see over and over again the same thing. The challenge of fear, lies, and E of O being the major challenges that must be overcome in order to become something new, something different in order to uncover that hero within. So as I started looking at this and started playing through this idea in my mind, I'm kind of crazy like that. I'm always thinking, my mind's always doing loops and loop-de-loos and doing crazy things as I try to get a deeper understanding myself of what I'm doing here, who I am, and how I can communicate these ideas with those that are listening to this podcast, and those that I coach, and those that read my books, and those that I am intent on making an impact on. How can I better communicate these ideas? So as I started looking at this, fear, lies, and expectations of others, and putting them over Gideon's life, like I said, I was pretty surprised. But here, fear, the Midianites, a fearful people. It says last week we read that they were in the numbers of locusts, that you could not count the number of men or the number of camels. They were wreaking havoc to the Israelite people, destroying their crops if they were out in the open. The Israelite people were hiding in caves and hiding in clefts and anywhere that they could find any sort of protection from these people. So it was a legitimate fear, but it was a fear nonetheless, the fear of the Midianites. And when the angel came, the angel called Gideon a mighty warrior and made it very clear immediately that his task that he was being given was to go and kill the Midianites. So he had to overcome a great fear. Number 2, lies. Now, lies can be lies that other people tell you that you believe, or they can be truths that you allow to hold you back, to keep you from moving forward. So you accept them as lies in your life to limit you. So for Gideon in that area, right away, he made it very clear in verse 6:15, "But Lord," Gideon said, "how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least of my family." Boom, right there. That was a lie that he was allowing to hold him back. He was allowing that to hold him back. And that falls right in line with this idea of expectations of others. Often we will look at the expectations that others put on us as a good thing, that we are acting noble, that we are acting within our role, that we do not step out of that role. That role has been given to us. His role was given to him and was set in place by being a part of the weakest clan and being the youngest in his family. Gideon was expected to go in a wine press and thresh wheat, to get food for him and for his family, and do other tasks to help out. Now, is there anything wrong with the things that he was tasked with doing? Of course not. But those were the expectations of others, and he was clearly within that box. He clearly believed the lie that was all he could do. That that's who he was, that's who he was meant to be, and that's all that he would ever be. Fell within that idea of these are the expectations of your community. This is the expectations of the Israel people. This is the expectations of your brothers and your father and your family. This is who you are. Stay in your box. These are the expectations. If you want to uncover the hero within, you must step out of that. And there are 2 reasons for that. We'll get into them. I'm going to read through the story of him breaking through the expectations of his community and his family. And then we'll get into why, because it's very clear within the story of why it is so important. That same night, so after his conversation with the angel, after him bringing some stuff, putting it on the altar, the angel burning it up. So after all of that we talked about last week, some of that, if not, go back, read the story for yourself. It's worth your time. So that same night, the Lord said to Gideon, "Take the second bull from your father's herd, the one 7 years old, tear down your father's altar to Baal, and cut down the Asher pole beside it. Then build a proper kind of altar to the Lord your God at the top of its height, using the wood from the Asher pole that you cut down offer the second bull as a burnt offering. So Gideon took 10 of his servants and did as the Lord told him. But because he was afraid of his family and the men of the town, he did it at night rather than in the daytime. In the morning, when the men of the town got up, there was Baal's altar demolished, and the Asher pole beside it cut down, and the second bull sacrificed on the newly built altar. They asked each other, "Who did this?" When they carefully investigated, they were told Gideon, son of Joash, did it. The men of the town demanded of Joash, "Bring out your son, he must die, because he has broken down Baal's altar and cut down the Asher pole beside it." But Joash replied to the hostile crowd around him, "Are you going to plead Baal's cause? Are you trying to save him? Whoever fights for him shall be put to death by morning. If Baal really is a god, he can defend himself when someone breaks down his altar." So there are two reasons why it is so important that you break outside of the expectations of others. The mold that you are in, the mold that is expected of you from your employers, from your family, from your church, from your community, from your family. It is important to break out of that mold, to not be afraid to break out of that mold for two important reasons. Stepping out of that mold allows you to see who is with you. I think it's really awesome to see his father's response to Gideon stepping outside of the expectations of everybody. He causes a tremendous scene. He breaks down the altar of a god that is being worshipped by the people, maybe in this area or this little town or whatever it might have been, the way things were broke down at that time, right? But there was a decent amount of people that this affected. And those people were willing to kill him on the spot. Those people that were supposed to be his people, that were supposed to be serving the same God that he was serving, the same people that had been taken out of Egypt years earlier, the same people that had the same history as him, were ready to kill him. But somebody stands up and defends his son. It makes an amazingly brilliant yet simple argument for why his son should be spared. Now he knows who is with him and he knows who is against him because he stepped outside of the expectations of others. The second reason it is detrimental to step outside of the expectations of others is because those are limits that others have put on you. Those are not truly limits of your smarts, of your abilities, of your knowledge, of your talents. Those are somebody else's judgments of your abilities, your talents, your knowledge. So you must break through that mold in order to prove to yourself and to others that the box that they have put you in is not where you belong. So let's review one more time. Fear, lies, and expectations of others. Fear for Gideon was the Midianites. The lies that he was telling himself was that he could not possibly do anything because he was in the least powerful clan and he was the youngest of his brothers. The expectations of everybody else around him that he needed to break through was the idea that he was who they said he was, that he was nobody special, that he held no place of honor, that he had held no place of authority, that he was merely a member of the weakest clan and the youngest in his family. I want to offer a word of caution here as well. Maybe a little bit of a rant, and there'll be some of you that may be upset with what I'm going to say. But I think it is important and something that has come to, something that I have seen revealed to me many times. And that is the need to be very cautious about believing that your church is necessarily your tribe. Again, just as Gideon assumed, I'm sure, that the Israelites were his tribe, were his people, were ready to string him up and kill him the moment that he stepped outside of what they expected him to be and where they were comfortable with him being. And I've seen this happen time after time after time within churches as well. I've seen it happen in my own life, and I've seen it happen in the lives of many other famous missionaries who were cautioned to stay back home and to not go to these savage people or these savage lands. It doesn't matter whether it's your employer, whether it's your family or your in-laws or your neighborhood or your community or your ethnic group. You need to be careful to know who your people are. When I was recording Ever Vigilant, and now all of 180 plus episodes are available if you go to ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/Heroes Wanted. I have the whole archives of Ever Vigilant available there now. One episode that was very popular at the time was an episode that I did called The Savage Christian. And it was 3 tenets of the savage Christian: untamed, unafraid, and uncompromising in our beliefs. And the whole idea behind untamed really comes from this idea that I was just talking about within the church. There are many stories of great missionaries, of great people of faith, who people within their church walls tried to hold them back and prevent them from following God's direction, from following the right path in order to stay where they were for out of convenience or out of friendship or whatever it might be. It doesn't always need to be a negative reason why people are trying to keep you in the box that they've designed for you. But it's where they feel comfortable with you. And we need to be very careful that we do not allow ourselves to stay within that box. My hope is that this week you will spend some time, maybe right after this podcast is over, spend some time analyzing your own life and look at what fears are holding you back, what lies are holding you back, and what expectations of others are holding you back from being the hero that your wife, your children, your neighborhood, your congregation, your community needs you to be at this time. We are in unprecedented times here in the United States. The lack of leadership, the lack of people that understand what it means to be leaders, the lack of people willing to be uncomfortable is at an all-time high. We must be willing to make sacrifices in order to serve others. Please take some time this week. Look at your life. Prepare yourself to abandon average and uncover the hero within. I hope that this podcast was of value to you. I hope that you get something out of this idea of fear, lies, and E of O. That's something that you can take with you and weigh yourself against. This next episode, we will be talking once again about Gideon. We're going to get into taking action. Even when it doesn't make sense, even when we don't understand, it is necessary to take action. And we're going to take a look at Gideon and his life and see what that looks like. If this podcast was of value to you, I would really appreciate a review wherever you listen to this podcast. I would appreciate you sharing this podcast, and I would appreciate you subscribing to this podcast. I believe that it's imperative that we be sharing this type of content with those that are important to us. My intent here is to help raise up an army of men that will look at things differently, that will live their life in a way that is uncompromising, in a way that is unfearful, and in a way that they cannot be tamed. But I don't want to live that way alone. I want you to start to live that way and influence those around you. And those around those men will influence the men that are around them. And those people, and on and on and on. My goal with doing this podcast, my goal with continually evolving this podcast and how I do this podcast. And the message that I send out with this podcast is to find a better understanding amongst those that listen. So I hope that this podcast is of some value to you. If it is, please do those couple of things for me. I would really appreciate it. You can also go to coffee.com. I mentioned that earlier, ko-fi.com/Heroes Wanted, and that will serve as kind of the base camp for Heroes Wanted. In the past, I've used Patreon. This is similar to Patreon, but I feel like it's just a little bit better. Later on this year, hopefully in February, I want to get started with a men's Bible study coming off of this group. We may go through Alpha Orders together as a group. I'm not exactly sure, but the old Alpha Orders newsletter is available there on coffee.com, as is the PDF version of my book. I want that to get out there. If you want to read Open 6 Life-Changing Principles, go there. You can download it right now for free. Again, that'll be for a limited time. If you want to get just a quick overview, a quick understanding of what in the world I mention in these podcasts when I talk about the 6 life-changing principles, there's a quick guide that's also available there at Coffee in the Shop. You can download those PDFs. You can also get access to all 180 plus episodes of the Guerrilla Traffic Cast along with Ever Vigilant Podcast. I had some excellent interviews on there with some really great men that many of them I'm still friends with. We still communicate regularly. One of the best parts of being a podcaster has been those relationships that I've been able to build with those guys. Go back, listen to those episodes, listen to those interviews. There is a lot to be gained from that info. The Traffic Cast was more of just a raw, unedited, unscripted, and unfiltered me rambling while on a commute home, giving out some thoughts, kind of going on some rants at times, just sharing what is on my mind and what was on my heart at that time. Some of that stuff may be a little outdated at this point, but I think there's still some very good info there. In February or March, I will be starting up another Guerrilla Cast recording while on my commute. It will be along the same vein, unfiltered, unscripted, and unedited. Just some thoughts of what I am thinking about during that day. Again, that's at ko-fi.com. As always, hold fast and God bless.